Zig coming in on the top. Today on the show, we have returning for the third time Danielle de Picciotto and Alexander Hacken from Hacke and Danielle, the two of which are lifelong, full-time artists, diving in multi-mediums, music being the one we talk about in this conversation. I've talked with Danielle and Alexander a few times, and the first part of our conversation is really when we get into their history and the profound impact they had and are continuing to have. But Danielle started with the early Berlin techno scene and started a thing called the Love Parade, which still happens today, which combined the east and west side of Germany through techno music. And if you're interested in that story, check out my first conversation with Danielle de Picciotto in an earlier episode. But today we're here to talk about Hacke and Danielle's new album, Keepsakes. It's available now on all streaming platforms. The album is an homage to the friends Danielle and Alexander have made along the way. Another really cool aspect of this record from their other works, it's recorded in the Auditorium Novecento in Napoli, one of the first recording studios in Europe. I usually have a listening example, but the downloads for me timed out, which means you guys have to go support Alexander and Danielle on their own platforms, linked below. So check out Keepsakes, and we're going to jump into this conversation. Before I do, this was a little rushed. They had something go wrong, and I was rushing to a gig in Akron. But we got together, and every time I talk with these guys, there's always some inspiration to be found and always new insight. So I hope you guys enjoy our conversation. One other thing before we get to that, if you can like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like Danielle and Alexander and sharing their insights with you. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Hacke and Danielle, Part 3. So to kind of jump into it, the new album, I like to, whenever I listen to a record or whenever Howard sends me someone, I like to listen to it before reading the bio or reading the press release to kind of get a feeling for what it just sounds like. And being that I've gotten to talk with you guys and listen to your work before, it was really interesting kind of just listening to it without knowing the context of this record. And like, because listening through, I'm like, this is a really kind of personal twist to what you guys do in a way. Not that your other work isn't personal, but like it was striking me more as like your journey. And then I went and read the work that came with it, and I was like, oh, it's about your friend, and I was like, so whatever that essence you were going for, I think comes off to not even knowing what the record may be about. And it's a fantastic record.
Thank you. Oh, thanks.
So my first question with that is like, being that it's celebrating friendship, was it kind of written during 2020, or was it or were seeds planted for this record during that time when the world was kind of shutting down?
Well, the seeds were being planted because we noticed how much we missed our friends. And, of course, the ones in the US or in Canada or overseas, but also the ones in Europe or even in Berlin. So, I don't know. I mean, we just started thinking about them a lot and speaking about them a lot, and some passed away. And, it was just like this theme. And we didn't have much time to actually prepare the album, but the thoughts were there beforehand. So basically it was just kind of gathering all the thoughts that we had and then kind of manifesting it, right?
Well, we invited these people. It's like we invited them to take part in our record, and they did show up. We are grateful for that.
It's interesting, it's like when you have that, I mean, you guys, your output's prolific. Like you guys are constantly putting stuff out. So I imagine a project like this in the last time I talked with you guys with the last record, one of them kind of precedes the other with what's doable and what's more kind of visualized, or finalized to be able to start to do. So with recording this record, and you guys with the studio you guys worked in, was that always kind of part of it, or was that a thing that opened up?
Well, when we finally got to tour again last year in the spring, we did a tour of Italy, And when we got to Napoli, in the very south of Italy, we got to play in a place called Auditorium Novecento, which turned out was one of the first recording studios in Europe, established sometime in the early 20s, right about the time the actual shellac record, the first actual discs were established. That's when that studio was established. It had been a recording studio ever since, and now they had just in the last couple of years they started doing shows in the big live recording room, and so we asked whether they are still operating as a recording studio. And when they said yes, we said like, okay, well, say no more. We'll be back in.
That's so cool. When I was reading about that, I was like, that's like, so did you know any of the history before when you guys booked the gig there? No?
No.
Oh, that's even cooler.
Yeah, it was amazing. We just thought it looked amazing because it's really like entering the 70s. It's still like totally, it looks like 70s, you know?
Yeah.
And there's this huge room, like the recording room is huge, and there's all these instruments standing around, like a grand piano, tubular bells. And we were just like, oh my God, do these instruments stay here when people record? And they're like, yeah, it's part of the studio. We were like, oh my God, we have to go here.
And an amazing collection, you know, like the house engineer was also the house engineer for our show. And he showed me their collection of microphones, you know, like all these vintage valve microphones, you know, Neumanns, you know, like the German microphone that you can't get your hands on in Germany anymore. So I was like, yeah, okay, sold.
Yeah, and then when we were there, when we were basically recording there, you know, we had no idea of its history. And on the first day, you know, we were in the recording room, and then there was this letter on the wall. And I was like, because I couldn't read it was like really old. And I said, who's that letter from? And they said Caruso. And I was like, what?
It was a poem composed by Caruso as a thank you note.
Yeah.
To the
We're like, Caruso? And they're like, yeah, this is the oldest recording studio in Naples and probably in Europe. And all the old, like, you know, the old Naples opera people and all those singers recorded there. And then they took us on a tour because they said it used to be not only a recording studio, but next to the recording studio, there was the plant where they would press everything.
Wow.
And there was label, and underneath it they have this huge basement, like these kind of, you know, arcs, this like really old kind of hallway where all the old recordings are stored, but it's really neglected, so it's all like full of dust, and it's like in a movie. And they're like, yeah, this is the whole history of music in here. We're like, oh my God, this is incredible. And then they, at the very end, they said yes, and Morricone recorded here too, and then I almost fainted.
Yeah. It actually is the kind of stuff that I dream, you know, like, I dream that I'm recording in the oldest recording studio in Europe in Naples.
Yeah.
That I'm in their vault with the archives of all the old Sherlock records. And this is the kind of stuff, you know, I dream.
It was incredible. It really was.
That's so cool. It seems so you guys too, like, and it's even more magic the kind of chance upon it, like.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah.
And it being like a big room, like Morricone, he would have like, you know, like orchestra pieces like recorded there and such. Yeah. So
right.
Yeah. 150 people orchestras, you know, like really big film orchestras, and the control room used to be the projection room, so they would project movies into the room, and an entire orchestra play along with the movie and stuff.
It's incredible.
Wow, that's like, how did, like, I mean, that kind of like his music, kind of knowing that it inspires you guys so much, like, makes sense now that I think back about all the listening through all your records prior. Like, when did Morricone's music reach you guys and touch you guys?
It was like the first record I ever got.
Really? Yeah.
My father gave it to me. Yeah. The first album I ever had was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and, you know, with his soundtrack. And I was hooked from the very first moment. I think I was 5.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's really funny because when we were saying that we're going to go to Naples, I was thinking Naples, Italy. I don't know, like what music would inspire me there, and I couldn't think of anything. I had I don't know why I had a blank, and I was thinking like I could only think of Adriano Celentano, and I was like, that's certainly not my kind of music. And only when we were in the studio and they said, well, this is an instrument that Morricone used, I was like, what? Oh, of course. And I suddenly remembered, of course. So everything kind of just fell into place.
What was the instrument?
Years ago.
What?
What was the instrument that he used?
It's a Celeste.
Celeste.
Like it's like a glockenspiel. It's like a bell piano.
But it's like a piano. It's like a really small one. You know, where he plays like little melodies.
Yeah.
That instrument was there. I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
I know.
Aside from a whole set of tubular bells, you know, which are really expensive.
Yeah.
But a few years ago, on Danielle's birthday, actually, on the 19th of February, Morricone happened to do a big show with like a 100-piece orchestra and choir in Berlin. And I got us tickets like in the third row or something, like the best tickets in the house. And I took her there, and I didn't even tell her that where we were going. And basically, we cried for a couple of hours because she was crying. We were so happy. I was happy that she was so happy. And we just, just like
crying.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so cool.
So that all is kind of encapsulated in the album too.
Well, yeah, because it's a joyous celebration of like friendship and that's so cool that early inspiration like is there as well. Like there was a Morricone quote, like he would compose on a piano that was out of tune, and if he would because like a melody should be able to carry through an instrument that's out of tune or something was his bit. I'm like, wow, that's
nice.
cool. Like the tune itself should precede the instrument not being able to play it. It should still be.
Yeah, that is great. That is great. That makes total sense.
I came across that getting ready to talk with you guys, and I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like I get why they're so influenced by him now.
Yeah.
But to kind of jump back in, like, so when it comes to like writing about a friend or finding like what's kind of like, and there's no right or wrong answer, but like what essences do you pull musically to represent that? Like when you think about writing for or about a person, in this case a friend, like what kind of tendencies did you guys find? Was it lyrically kind of like conveying this friendship, or was it like finding a musical like notes that like a musical way to express that, or like a tone or style that represented them or that they influenced you with? Like what was kind of the process of musically?
Most of them were musicians, and so that was one thing, and it was quite a hard task on the other hand, because we were careful not to lose our very own unique voice over the homage to somebody who might do something entirely different, but we love, and so we're quite versatile. So we could have ended up with a whole sequence of entirely different genres and styles, but we tried to avoid that and tried to put their musical influences and also their character traits, which might be very different from the kind of scenery we usually evoke, so it was quite a delicate task to be respectful and to stay true to our own voice and to still come up with something exciting and stimulating and what have you.
Well, I think you guys definitely did that, because like with my first listen, I wasn't like this doesn't sound like you guys, but it sounds like there's something to it. So was that like I guess musically diving into it? What's the word I'm trying to find? Like, did they like thinking about certain people and like what they was there like a style or instrument or a set of a mode or something that one of your friends used musically that you applied, and maybe this was the first time applying that?
Well, one thing that definitely kind of slipped in was a slight jazz approach, like a couple of, percussive things or trumpets or stuff. We hadn't had that at all before, although I did do the soundtrack for a documentary film last year on Michael Caine. And when I think of him, I always think of jazz.
Yeah.
So the whole soundtrack was basically jazz. And I really enjoyed doing that, which surprised me. And a couple of the friends that we're dedicating the songs to do have slight experimental connections with jazz. So we thought it would be fun to kind of, let that be part of it a little bit. So that's definitely something that is new and that we actually really enjoyed and we kind of want to keep.
Yeah. Or for example, the guy we did Schwarze Milch, the first single for, he's definitely an existentialist. So so that's why the track has that kind of beatnik, existentialist, cigarette chain smoking, turtleneck wearing kind of feel.
That's cool. That's cool that the dabble in it and find what you're going to take from that. It's kind of like when you first start getting into music and learning about it, it's like your friends show you that record of the artist that like, oh, this is so, and I want to try to do what they're doing, and like the kind of be able to like to the friend that had that thing, you're like, yeah, cool, like to dive into their world a little bit sounds really rewarding. That's awesome.
Right. But again, it's like, walking on that edge of not being too much in that direction and keeping your own thing. It was like something which we constantly had to check, like how far, because some of them do very different music than we do. And it was not easy to kind of find something that would work with our kind of sound or style and still represent them. So we have like in every song, we have like little secret hints about who it is for, or little, like, for instance, you asked about the lyrics. For instance, in Schwarze Milch, the musician, Alex like saying the story that
well, he was a big fan of all kinds of different existentialist things, and there's the composer Erik Satie. Erik Satie. He was a cook, and he at one point decided he would only nourish himself with white foods. So he would only eat things that were white. Huh. So our friend decided, okay, well, I only eat things that are black then.
That's why the title of the song is Schwarze Milch, because it's black milk. But again, has a connotation to Paul Celan, the writer, because that's a very existentialist writer, which our friend loved. So there's like all these different kind of like, little puzzles and mind games within the whole thing, which kind of show or represent that person, but then it's so layered and hidden that you really have to kind of look for it or know the person to be able to recognize it. Because that was another thing, it was like the most important thing, of course, is that the music has to stand for itself, even without the story. So it's great that you listen to it before reading it before, because that's like the most important thing, of course, that the music has to be okay with, even for people that do not read anything about it. So that was the whole, like, it was like, all these tasks that we had writing these songs, trying to upkeep that idea.
And also we're not really announcing or making public who the pieces are dedicated to.
Yeah.
So, and I'm really curious to see when it comes out and we play it to other close friends of these people, whether they will get it, So this is quite exciting to see, like playing it to a close friend of that very person. then seeing if a little light switches on,
Or how long it takes them for them to get there. Like, wait a minute, that's about Tom. What?
Right.
Exactly.
But I think you guys do a really like an expertise job at that, because it's like I think when you learn a style of a thing musically, like right, like I want to apply it, the Coltrane licks in my playing, like they really become applied when they don't sound like you're trying to sound like Coltrane, but they sound like when you're playing you. And is that influenced by Coltrane? Like when there's like it becomes so embedded in what you do, like that someone's like, I guess that's where they're going with that. You know what I mean? Like when that murky water is really like kind of mastery in that sense. So that's really cool that was like kind of the thought going into it. Like let's have that murkiness because that's us, but how we perceive you know what I mean? Like in the bigger sense, how we perceive them, and like. So that's really cool that was always kind of on concern. I guess like because when kind of going back, like as it does stand as on, like when my first listen through, I thought it was all about your guys' journey musically, because I was like troubadour and like kind of going through. I'm like, because you guys are always moving and like this is you know what I mean. So I just thought it was like that level, you know. So to further expand upon what you said, it definitely carries through on its own.
Cool. Fantastic. And of course, I mean, I think that as an artist, everything that you do somehow also reflects upon yourself. So, the friends that one has, of course, are a reflection of the things that are important to oneself. So it's kind of like a mirror thing. And I don't know, it was a really interesting experiment. It kind of made us think a lot about ourselves and our friends and why they are, because all of the people that we are, dedicating these songs to were like the most important or are the most important people kind of in our lives. And it was like, what was it? If you're doing that, it's almost like painting a portrait of somebody, or like looking at every feature and thinking about it. And when you're doing music, you're kind of thinking more of the soul and how you can express that. So it's a lot of, I don't know,
even though
soul searching.
But even though I think that whatever creative process or whatever art you're doing, you're just laying, you're just laying out the seeds, and as the piece grows, it becomes an entity of its own with its very own demands, and it'll tell you what it needs, and at one point it'll be developed or evolved to a point where whatever you feel very necessary to apply doesn't apply anymore. Like oh, I should really play this and this on top of that though. But the piece will go like, nah, I don't need that, or it will go, no, you should really do that and that, and you go like, but I can't play the trombone. Yeah, but I really need a trombone, and it becomes a conversation between the creator and the creation, and the creation at one point just goes like, hey, do this to me.
That makes sense. That makes sense though. You know what I mean? Like, and that's really cool so like going through the studio and being like having all these extra instruments and stuff like that, like these tubular bells and stuff.
Yeah.
Was it like, no, they all need it? And the piece was like, maybe not all of us. Or, you know what I mean? Like, that's a really, I think a really cool way to look at that process, because there's so much like, I feel like so much of it can be formulaic because we got to learn formulaically to be able to start to express, so I think that was really well said. I can't remember the song, but it starts with that jazz beat, and it's got that like, and then it goes into like talk about not liking New York as much.
Oh, it's about loving New York.
Yeah.
Loving and leaving New York was it?
Yeah.
The name? Like,
Yeah.
Didion.
Yeah.
I guess was that one of those pieces that needed certain things, or was that one like that process was pretty clear in, or?
They all have that.
Okay, they're all like that.
They all have what?
They all say what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because with that piece, I mean, I'm from New York, and that one is definitely about me, but also about the guy that we're dedicating it to, who's a New Yorker. And it really had a mind of its own, because originally I wanted to speak it completely differently, but it didn't work. And I was like, I was thinking of something kind of like more like, I don't know, proclaiming it more, like really loud, and it sounded horrible. And so I kind of had to fight around with somehow, speaking it. And that one definitely had a mind of its own, 100%.
It's, like that like listening to the piece is such like it's one of those things, like it takes a long time to like kind of learn that skill set, like but you're right, like how like you try all these different things and you have this thing in your head, like it should be this aggressive, like, or it should be this beautiful kind thing, and it's like really what works in that moment, or what skill set you have at that time, or that whatever it may be to execute that expression. Like, I guess kind of learning to listen to these pieces, not just on this album, but throughout your careers musically. Like, do you remember a kind of a turning point that kind of turned on that switch to, like, I should stop trying to talk and listen?
I have just recently discovered there's even a genre in modern music or new music which is called deep listening. And thinking about that, it's a genre in music. It's called deep listening, and I started thinking about this, and that listening actually is not a passive thing. It's also is an active. It's an active process where if you listen to something closely, you are concentrating, you're categorizing, you are. You're looking behind obvious sounds and stuff like that. So listening is a very active thing too. And I started thinking about that. I think it's an interesting approach, because I'd never, I used to think, well, I'm doing it,
Yeah.
and listening to it, that's just a side effect of it. But actually, the listening part is very important too.
Yeah, that's the one thing that we always regret, because we never have a lot of time to record.
Yeah.
And we always say after this time, for instance, we only had 2 weeks to record in the studio, 2 weeks to mix it, and we had about 4 days before recording it to like even just start kind of having ideas. So it was super short time, and we always say next time we're going to take a lot more time. I mean, Neubauten take like 10 months. I'm always jealous. And it's like, let's
old farts and snob.
let's somehow manage to have at least 2 months to like work on this in peace, to be able to do exactly that, to like record a little and then listen to it, to actually take the time to listen to it in peace without having to immediately do something with it.
Yeah, a lot of the things we do have to do with efficiency on different levels, because we usually have this little time to record to start with, and then also it's just the two of us. So if we do something and we think about how are we going to present this live, like we have to we have to make the pieces efficient, like. Like you might be able to play a really great violin line and a really good chord structure on the auto harp and a really haunting hurdy-gurdy track, but you have to decide for one thing, because you will not be able to play all three things at the same time. And same here, like this is a really great bass line, but
you are playing the drums simultaneously.
So it's we have to be efficient in what we do. It has to be on point also. So that is also a parameter.
Did you see the video?
I saw the clip of the video.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the video yet, but I think I saw it on Instagram.
Yeah.
It was really cool looking. You guys did a really good job with it.
Thanks. And
I didn't do anything.
Basically, usually our videos are always us two.
Yeah.
And this time I thought it would be actually nice to have, every instrument played, and then see how many people we actually need in our band.
Yeah. we got this casting agency involved. They're called Ugly Models, and they provided us with these different.
Basically, it was all us and my niece.
That's
Like,
awesome.
it's a huge band. It's a big band, and that's what we usually have to do as the two of us on stage. So it's a lot of work.
But yeah, but it was really well done. Like how is it like to build it up like that, and like, but that I think that's a good illustration of what goes into a piece, and like, and that it's. You know, I was just talking with my girlfriend about this because her band's about to record, and they're doing a little more speedy track than my group does. My group will go in, track a few, and like come back because we've developed a relationship with this same place we go, you know, and it gives me time to like kind of do what you guys just said, listen to it, come back for the next thing, and it's an elongated thing. But it's something I've started, that deep listening, that I never thought of it like how you described it, but like it is more than just listening to some degree. Like you hear it, like you were saying, but like when you really start to like think about everything that's going on, like it makes sense to like people that make music and play music and are concerned about it. But so someone else is just like, wow, yeah, it sounds sad. Okay, next song, you know. But like to like, you know, like maybe they're not going to be like, well, the oboe sounds sad because of that minor descent or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, but when you have that like kind of like listening practice that you partake in, that deep listening, like I didn't know that was a genre. I'm gonna have to check that out. But like that approach to it becomes like a real practice. So being able to like take a couple weeks and then like listen to one song and then go back and then put the thing on really like changed my perception of that. And like they're about to go track everything live, which we used to do a lot back in the day. We would go book us the room, we're done, you know.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, I would really give a lot to be able to listen to music again like I did before I was able to play instruments, or before I had that analytic listening, you know, like when I was, you know, certain songs, you know, I still, they evoke the pictures of the comic strips that I was reading as a kid when I listened to Crocodile Rock by Elton John. You know, like I know exactly what superhero comic I was, you know, reading when I heard that song a lot on a K-Tel, compilation album or whatever. And and that was also a really cool time. And so if we manage to have people enjoy our music who are not, you know, professionals, you know, and just that the music creates just a feeling without anyone, for someone who's not being able to analyze what exactly is going on in the music, then that's also a really great thing. And I wish I could do that. But I cannot do that anymore. I cannot watch movies without analyzing them. I cannot listening to music anymore without analyzing it, you know. And that's a bit sad too.
It definitely is. There's like that kind of thing where like I'm in it now. Like even when I try not to do that, you find you spend so much practice doing that, it just happens. There's this really interesting book. It's called Becoming the Instrument by Kenny Werner. Are you familiar?
No.
Okay, Kenny Werner also wrote this book called Effortless Mastery. He's a jazz pianist, and he's got a whole bit on there, like this kind of approach for trying to do that, trying to like set aside a time where like set aside a way to kind of hear music in a way without letting your body just naturally react to it without analyzing it with your mind. And it's I think you guys would get a kick out of it.
Becoming the Instrument.
Becoming the Instrument.
Kenny Werner. Okay. All right.
I just let my drummer borrow it, and he was like, "Oh my god, this is great!" And like gobbled it up in a week.
Okay.
But it is interesting. It is interesting, like going down that. But also, there's the beauty to knowing a little bit of what's going on behind it. Like, it's a good balance of both, I think, with most things in life. But do you guys plan? Are you guys planning to come to the States with this? Because last time I think
would.
we talked, you guys were playing in Detroit when I think we were talking, or just played Detroit or something. This was years ago, I think, or a year.
Yeah.
Many years
Yeah,
ago.
we haven't been in the U.S. since 1918.
18 to 19.
18 to 19, yeah.
We played the West Coast in December of 18, and then we came back.
We wanted to do a tour for this fall, but everything's become so expensive. The visas have become so expensive that it would have cost us 8,000 euros 1.5 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, including the visas, the flights, the luggage transportation, which has become crazy. And so we're like, we really can't, we don't know how to do that.
Yeah,
like 8,000 euros for 1.5 weeks is a bit much. So we're we're touring Canada now in July. We've been playing a couple of shows there, and then we're going to try and see if we can get something together for next year that makes more sense. Maybe a longer tour with less costs, if that's possible. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
And one thing I admire is that you guys do this all yourselves. Like, I've been slamming my head against the wall trying to like book tours and just where I'm at, like, trying to find the crazy cool studios that like have shows in them like you guys are, and it's like it's a thing I constantly am just running low on. You know what I mean? Like, but also I feel that's because everyone's trying to do the bit and they're trying to get through this stuff. So you're screaming at these venues and they're like, you and a million other people.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's a lot of work. I mean, I usually do it so that, I don't know, let's say I write to 200 venues and 5 answer that say yes. It's okay. But that's life.
Sorry, what?
It's life nowadays in general, it's like such a struggle in every way, no matter how long you've been doing it, no matter where you are, it's kind of, I don't know. It's, it kind of really asks you to become extremely inventive and flexible.
But that's key. That's really inspiring to hear, like, because it's so hard and then know that it's always going to be, I guess it's just the way it is. But, and also it speaks volumes on how persistent and like how long you guys have been doing it and how dedicated you are. And I think that love for that comes through in this record, and it comes through with the friends you make going through that process. And like, okay. I have 2 more questions and I'll let you guys go. One of which was, what's a number to you guys? I don't know if that was that the existential friend?
No, friend. Well, that's a good question. Good.
Yeah. Yes, I wrote that because there is so much. Because just before that, I'm kind of counting down all the achievements of that person. Like she speaks so many languages. She has done that. She has done that. And all these different numbers, and I okay. This is my critique. This is my critique against neoliberalism, where you only are, your worth is what you achieve. Your worth is what you, how much money you make, like how.
Like a friend of ours once told us that in Hollywood, he came to Hollywood. He's a very successful music composer. And he said first time he went to a Hollywood a party, people were only introducing him with his name and the movies after his name that were like blockbusters. So he was like the composer for Run Lola Run. I don't know if you know that movie. So he would only be introduced as Johnny Run Lola Run. And he said, if you don't have that tag, they're not going to introduce you. They're just going to completely ignore you. So it's kind of like that idea of tagging all those things onto your name that you've achieved in life. And like, what the fuck is it that's supposed to mean?
And then questioning that, and going, yeah, but what is a number? You can count out like all the great things you've done, but it's just a number of things. How does it apply to what you are really worth?
What what the friendship's about or what the human,
Yeah.
why you love somebody. It's not about the 3 books or the 20 languages or the whatever. It's something completely different. So that's basically what those lyrics are saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that one hit really hard, and that's why, like, when I was thinking, like, this is about your guys' journey, I was like, damn, this is a heavy one right here, because, like, that is an excellent question. What is this? And, like, and I think more than recently with, like, social media and stuff, these numbers become, like, now it's not even, like, the movie you scored behind your name, but it's the number of followers. It's back to, like, a literal
Exactly.
number.
Yeah, certain promoters will not work with you. Certain promoters will not work with you unless you have, like, 3,000 followers on Instagram or stuff like that. And then I ask myself, but what is a number? What does it even say about the quality of your work, let alone the quality of your person?
Right. And no, I definitely agree with that, because part of that becomes skewed. You know what I mean? Like, if you spend so much time either trying to accumulate these numbers, you're not doing the thing that is just you. You're finding what's the most accessible part of you to people that are like, oh, that looks neat, like, or whatever, or or that sounds, whatever that is, like, and like, and that takes away from the honest expression of who you are, because you're too busy trying to please everyone else. And, like, or the opposite is, someone pays all these things to get all these numbers, and it really just muddles it. It doesn't show that you have anything to offer except for other numbers to gain numbers.
That's how the cookie crumbles.
But it beneath all that, like, amongst all that, because there is all that phony kind of, like, not exciting, like, I don't know what it is, impure, like, or inauthentic tendencies that we see a lot. There are the ones that are, right? Like, and it seems like the person who doesn't list the things they've done before or after their name, or doesn't tell you the numbers, is usually got more of that thing that is inspiration for you to drive from. I don't know what that, but, like, it's such a, I think that's such a good check. I don't know. Like, that was a beautiful thought process, which is, every time I talk with you guys, I leave, like, more like, the inspiration and insight I'm always looking for with talking with people who do what you do and do creative things is right there. So I appreciate that.
Thanks. We really enjoyed talking to you every time, too.
Yeah.
We were looking forward to it. That's why we were so horrified that we were, like, too late.
No, this worked out great. Like, I got a gig in Akron, Ohio here in a little bit that I got to start packing up to get to. But
Akron, Ohio, that's where Devo and Per Ubu come from, right?
Yeah. Like, Per Ubu's kind of all around Europe and stuff. Do you ever cross paths with those cats?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. We saw time we saw them was at the
Primavera.
Barcelona.
The Primavera Festival in Barcelona. Actually, Christoph Hahn, friend of ours who plays with the Swans, he played with Per Ubu for a while.
Okay, cool.
Also, Tony Mamoni, the bass player, is a really great guy. He runs the G Train studio in New York City, and he's a fantastic Italo-American original.
He's in the band. He's also in what are they called?
And the Wiremen.
And the Wiremen, yeah. Nice band, really cool band.
Definitely have to check them out.
Yeah, and the Wiremen, great music.
Very cool. Well, guys, thank you so much for chatting with me. I'm glad we got to make this work. Sorry to wrap it up a little quicker than I would have liked to here at the end, but thank you guys so much, and I'm really excited for everyone to hear this record. And I think it's a beautiful record, and I'm excited to talk to you guys with the next one, which I'm sure will be sooner than later. Do you have? I guess maybe that's a good final question. Is like, what do you have anything? I know it's like, as soon as you're putting one out, something's in the works. Like, at least that's what I got to do. I'm like, I got to be working on something. Do you guys have something like that in the works at the moment?
Yep.
Yeah?
But we're not going to tell you about it.
Okay.
That would be too much, but it'll be great.
Yeah, we'll tell you in the fall when it comes out.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And I look forward to hearing that next project and sending you this guy, all this stuff down the line.
Thanks so much.
All right. Have a good
night.
evening, friends.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig at the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.